Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Team Alignment Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Amara, and on this podcast, we unpack the real reasons why teams lose alignment and what leaders can do to bring it back. I have a great episode planned today. We're going to be looking at how to give effective feedback. And I know that feedback is a difficult aspect for lots of managers because people management can be very challenging. So if you're the manager that's bit hesitant to give feedback, or especially corrective feedback, or you constantly delay, this is a great one. This is a great show for you. So sit back and enjoy. Now, if you're the manager who's really scared of giving feedback because, oh gosh, you feel like they'll feel demotivated if you told them something corrective, or they might not like you, or you're really scared of just hurting their feelings, pause, okay? I want you to take a moment and realize that the guilt trap is definitely not what you want to fall into. Because guess what? The moment you avoid giving feedback, what happens, right? You will be frustrated because the other person has no clue what's going on. The sense of frustration will continue on. Next thing you know, your relationship with that person is tense. And maybe you end up giving that feedback and then you feel guilty afterwards because you used the wrong tone, or you feel like, oh gosh, I should have done this earlier. Do yourself a favor, honestly, and give the feedback immediately. Why do I say this? Well, it's extremely important for you to, especially if you feel sense of anxiety giving feedback, just think about it. You are a line manager. You're supporting your team. You, as a line manager or leader, you are in charge of ensuring the success of every single member of your team. You're all working together to achieve one particular goal. And so when you think about your role as line manager, your role is really about supporting them. And what is the best way to support a team member? Well, it's by giving feedback. It's by helping them understand they're doing great, for example. And maybe there's the things they're not doing as well. And that's where you step in to give some feedback to help them course correct. So I would definitely say, think about feedback as giving them clarity. Think of it as an opportunity to bring clarity to whatever they're doing, because it's possible they might have a wrong impression or making assumptions. So you correct that by again, sharing what you think is necessary. 2, think of it as support. Maybe if you think of it as support, then you recognize that you're actually doing them a service. You're doing them a kindness. By giving feedback, you're supporting them. Right? You're giving them that support that's necessary to succeed. Because imagine if you only give positive feedback or never give any feedback, they'll keep making the same mistakes. And then at the end of the day, it just causes a lot of chaos for everybody. So you definitely need to have feedback to enable your team have the right ideas, course correct. But let's not only focus about the corrective feedback either. We also need to make sure that we're giving them positive feedback. And so when we think about feedback, I want you to think about 3 things. Any feedback must have 3 critical elements. We need to understand what has happened. We need to know what has worked well or not. And we need to know why it matters. It has to connect. What happened, what worked or didn't, why it matters. Why is it important for us to talk about why it matters? Well, it's because when you're giving feedback, both corrective and positive, you want to be able to tie it to impact, because this is what will help the person really understand either how grave or how terrible the act has been and how it's caused a lot of chaos. So to help them understand the consequences. And if it's something positive, it could help them see how well they've supported or done something really, really phenomenal. So it's extremely important to connect to these 3 elements. What happened? What worked well or didn't, why it matters. And there's an excellent framework called SBI. And maybe you've heard of this framework in the past, but this is a framework I definitely teach. And I think it's extremely important. It's called the SBI framework model. And SBI stands for, as you can see, it stands for situation, behavior, impact. You want to start with situation, and that is identifying or highlighting the specific moment, the time when whatever happened, right? So you want to talk about the behavior. You're not judging the personality of the person, rather you're looking at the behavior. What observable action occurred? And then what was the impact? How did it affect the teamwork or the outcome? SBI framework model is so powerful because It's very simple, it's very specific, and you can just use it as a framework to respond to whatever corrective feedback you have, or positive feedback for that matter. So what does it actually entail? The SBI framework model starts with S, stands for situation. Just like I mentioned earlier, we're looking at what happened, right? What happened before? What was the situation in which whatever act occurred? The second thing you're going to look at is the behavior. What observable action did you see? This is important because you want to make sure that it's very well explained to the person. Otherwise, if you're not very clear on what exact the behavior that occurred, if you're not very clear on what happened, or if you don't even have a record of that, then it just really makes it very difficult. The last part is impact. Like I mentioned earlier, it's extremely important that when you're giving feedback, that you also anchor it on the impact, on the effect on the team. It could be the behavior, how it affected the team, how it affected work, how it affected any outcome. It's extremely important you put that together so that they understand the consequence. And that really helps ground that person. And hopefully they're able to recognize where the error was, and then they're able to give you some support. So this is a framework that you could use to address behavior that needs course correction. And it can also be used to give positive feedback where you want to show appreciation for a job well done, as the case may be. Now, the SBI framework model was developed by the Center for Creative Leadership, and this is a model that a lot of people use. All right, so maybe you're thinking, well, how does that actually work? Well, I'm going to share with you an example. So this example is grounded on the humanitarian sector, which is an area where I work. So don't worry if you don't understand the terms. You can also just switch out those words and use your own experience, for example. So I'm going to just quickly share with you an example. Okay, so here is the corrective feedback. In SBI, we always talk about creating shared reality. That's one of the major reasons why we definitely want to use this methodology, is because it helps you bring that person into a shared reality of what has happened. So let's say, for example, you're going to meet like a member of your team, and you'd say, during last Thursday's coordination meeting, the updated implementation timeline was introduced without being shared with the team beforehand. This created confusion about the revised milestones and required additional follow-up to realign expectations. You're going to pause. And then you're going to do the second thing, which is you're going to invite perspective. And so you ask a neutral question, or a neutral operational question. And so what you could do is say, so could you walk me through what happened, for example? Or you could also say, what constraints were you working under? Or was there something that made advanced sharing difficult? You want to give them a chance, obviously, to share their thoughts and maybe explain what happened, where the ball got dropped. And ultimately, you want to ask what could help ensure that updates are shared with the team in advance. You want to be able to give them an opportunity to also talk about how to correct the behavior, right? So, for example, you could say, so what could you do to prevent this from happening next time? How could I even be of help? Something we could have done better, so then you give them an opportunity to share what they would have done differently. And by doing that, you really provide a solution, because you definitely want to leave with a solution. You don't want to have things hanging in the air. And of course, you want to also document this so that, maybe the next time you have another check-in, you can check to see, okay, if everything was okay, if that behavior has now improved. And this is one way you can actually support your team. It's extremely important, obviously, to have these conversations way in advance. And what I mean by a conversation, I mean it's extremely important to have an alignment session way in advance to help understand the expectations around feedback. Now, of course, we talked about corrective feedback. Now we're going to talk about positive feedback. What about positive feedback? Well, it's basically the same thing. You're still going to use the same SBI, situation, behavior, and impact. And why is this important? Well, just the same thing as the corrective feedback. You want to be able to anchor the positive feedback on something that has impact, to show that they've the behavior has really impacted the team in a positive way, or project, or the morale, or whatever it is that you want to share. So, for example, you could say, Nala, during last Thursday's coordination meeting, you clearly explained the updated implementation timeline. This helped the team and partners align quickly on the next steps. Thank you so much for doing that. Please keep that up. I can assure you that if you do this, that person is going to be Nala. Nala is going to be very happy, and it will encourage her to even do more. I'll give you a quick story. Many years ago, I was working with an international not-for-profit organization, and I had the great opportunity of traveling around the world, literally. And I was doing a good job, and I loved doing what I did. And one day, I opened my email, and my line manager sent me a message. He sent me an email saying, Amara, I just want to say, well done for how you're representing us outside. You're doing such a great job. You're really, bringing awareness to the work that we do in the field. And I just want you to know that I'm really proud of you. I was stunned. I mean, I wasn't expecting this, and I just felt so good. I just carried that, because I was like, oh wow, I'm doing so well. And I try to be even better. Giving feedback, you may be surprised how much people really need that, especially positive feedback. A lot of times people think, oh well, it's not necessary. Like, why bother? But the truth is, it's extremely important to give positive feedback. In fact, if you can give more positive feedback than corrective, that would be helpful, because then people are not so scared of it. At the beginning of this episode, I talked about the importance of feedback. And one thing that's so important as a manager, especially at the beginning of the year, is to have an alignment session to bring awareness in terms of what your expectations are. You have to be able to establish expectations so that everybody understands what they're supposed to be doing, and not just individually, but also how they work together. And so if you're able to have this conversation, you can also talk about your expectations around feedback. And by doing this, it will allow the team members to not be so scared, because then they recognize that your intent is one of making sure that they succeed. And I mean, I just imagine if you're in a team and you have a line manager telling you that they really want you to succeed, and they share that with you. Just imagine how that will make you feel. So you can do that too. So remember, do not delay feedback, because feedback is really a kindness. Feedback is a critical tool that you can use to help your team feel good about themselves, build trust and psychological safety. It can help boost their morale, and most importantly, it can help course correct if they're making a mistake. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button, subscribe, and follow for more. Until next time, be well.